Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so my name is Abby, and I'm going to be talking to you about Native American food. So, Jesse, have you ever had corn? One time? Do you like corn?
He loves corn.
So, Native Americans ate corn, beans, and squash all the time. Like, they would have it with almost every meal. And so, they would call those the Three Sisters. And so the Three Sisters, they would farm and plant together because they would all help each other out. So the corn would grow and it would create a stalk, and then the beans would run up the stalk and use as like a pole to keep them structured. And then the beans would give the soil nitrogen to help with fertilization, and then the squash would cover everything to block the sunlight so no weeds would grow. So it was really nice for farmers that they could grow all three of these foods together. So other foods that Native Americans used was chili peppers and tomatoes and potatoes, and they would use these in a lot of their dishes. So Native American foods now, restaurants nowadays use a lot of these foods and try and make it more modern. So for example, they made a posu bowl, which is basically beans, wild rice, like any type of beans, wild rice. You put chili peppers on it, tomatoes, and you just mix it in a bowl, and they would serve that. Another thing about Native Americans, they were hunters and gatherers, so they would go out and hunt their food. So they would hunt things like bison and deer and stuff like that, and so a lot of their foods that they make now is bison. So for example, bison ribs. They would make bison ribs and they'd make this like blueberry barbecue sauce, put it over the ribs, and then they would grind up blue corn and make that into like a mush to have along with the bison ribs. So another good example of using corn would be to use the husks. So they didn't just eat the corn, they used the husks to help with cooking. So for example, they'd have stuffed trout filled with herbs, and they'd cover that in the husk and almost like wrap it like aluminum foil, and then they'd put clay around it. Do you know what clay is?
No.
It's something you can mold. It's almost like a putty that you put around it and you put it in the oven.
Play-Doh.
Yeah, and so they would use that to cook it, and then when it's done, they would take it out, break the clay off, and it would be steaming. So the trout would be cooked, and it'd be like a nice meal. And so another way to use the husk is they would use it for masks. Like you see this mask right here? Sometimes they would make these masks out of the corn husks. Isn't that cool? And so this is a corn that I made out of just a paper lunch bag. You can color with crayons, any colors that you want. You can see that there's different colors in the corn here. And this is the husk up here. Pretty cool. Another fun fact about Native Americans is a lot of them are lactose intolerant because they couldn't get too close to the bison or the deer or anything that they were hunting because they would get hurt. And so they got milk and chickens and stuff like that, where the dairy was brought over by the Europeans, and so that's why a lot of the Native Americans were lactose intolerant, because they didn't grow up with stuff like that. Do you like milk?
Yeah.
Yeah, you drink a lot of milk? Good, it's good calcium. Yeah, so that's just like a little bit about Native American food, stuff like that. Thank you.